Country number 1. Germany. Germany. My home country. Where should I start? There's so much to tell about it. My entire life practically takes place in Germany. Everything. Except when I travel, of course. My home, my school, my friends, and my family are there. Before I start narrating in more detail, you should know in Germany there are 16 federal states. Federal states are parts of a country, principally a political structure for the management of Germany. Or simply said, something like in the United States. They have 50 states and we have 16 federal states. And by the way, I've been to 14 of them. First federal state, Bavaria. I was born in Germany in 2007 in a Bavarian city of 20,000 inhabitants. I grew up there and still reside there. I would say that the area where I stay is quite centrally located. I mean, I just live half an hour away from the Austrian border, and to the Czech Republic it is almost 2 hours. It also takes a little over 2.5 hours to arrive at the Italian border by car. In addition, I don't live far away from Munich, which is Germany's third largest city, so I've been there around 100 times. In fact, I usually go there several times a year. But what city is Munich? What can you do there? Well, you probably have heard of the name before, but you might not know what it exactly is. Therefore, I will now go a little bit more into detail. Munich is the capital and most populated city of Bavaria, the federal state I live in. The first thing that comes to most people's mind when they hear about Munich is the Oktoberfest. The Oktoberfest is a very big festival with up to 6 million visitors per year, which is a massive number if you think about it, as it only takes place around 2.5 weeks in a year. It usually starts in mid-September and ends in early October. There are many tents. In some you can hear music playing, while in others you can eat something. A typical thing to eat here would be the pretzel, for example, and if you were to drink something, you could have a beer. The special thing about the Oktoberfest is that many visitors wear the Tracht. The men wear a lederhose and the women a dirndl. Besides the Oktoberfest, there are other interesting things worth a visit too. The Englischer Garten is one of the world's largest urban public parks. There are many sights and attractions, but to be brief, the most known attraction in this park is probably surfing. One of the artificial streams flowing through the Englischer Garten, called Eisbach, forms a standing wave about 1 meter high at a certain position, which is a popular river surfing spot. The water is cold and shallow, sometimes only 40 centimeters deep, making it only suitable for experienced surfers and playboaters. There are so many things about Munich which I could talk about, but I'll get to this in another video. Now I'll shortly summarize other important attractions that you need to see when you're visiting Munich. There is the Schloss Nymphenburg, which is an amazing castle, the Olympia Park, a large park with a high mountain, a stunning lake and an exciting stadium, the Deutsches Museum, which is a very interesting and simultaneously the world's largest museum of science and technology, the Tierpark Hellerbrunn, an astonishing zoo, the Allianz Arena, a fantastic football stadium, the Hofbräuhaus, a beer hall that is considered the landmark of Munich, and the Marienplatz, which is a beautiful square in the center of Munich. I have been to all of these places I mentioned before, and there are so much more, but if I told you about everything in detail, the video would probably take about 2 hours. From my side, these were the most important things about Munich, so please come to Munich and visit them. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. Besides Munich, Bavaria is known for other things too. The Alps are the highest mountain range in Central and Southern Europe. The highest mountain in Germany, the Zugspitze, is located in the Alps and in Bavaria. The mountains are perfect for hiking, climbing, or just relaxing, and in winter you can go skiing, sledding, or snowboarding. The view is also beautiful, and the lakes and rivers are very clear there. Another thing that comes to some people's mind when they hear Bavaria is the fields. Bavaria is very agricultural in relation to the other federal states. In no other federal state are living as many farmers as here, and a large part of the area consists of fields. Seeing tractors or cows isn't unusual when you're traveling in the outbacks. In my opinion, these were the most important things to know about Bavaria. Second federal state, Baden-Württemberg. I've already been to Baden-Württemberg 8 times. Okay, actually in 4 holidays, but I've always continued my journey, e.g. to France or Switzerland, so I count the way back, again through Baden-Württemberg, as another time. The first time I visited Baden-Württemberg, I was 10 years old. I was planning to go to France and I put in an overnight stop. I slept in a city hotel in Stuttgart, the capital of Baden-Württemberg. You have to know that when you drive from Bavaria to France, you usually drive through Baden-Württemberg. I really liked Stuttgart. It was very nice. I went for a walk to see a bit more of the city. It has a huge indoor market where you can buy fruit, vegetables, fish, meat and much more. This market hall is nicely arranged and has a large assortment. On the palace square of the Neues Schloss, I took a break. The Neues Schloss is a gigantic castle. Afterwards, I had a delicious dinner in the city and then I slept in my hotel room. Although I would have liked to stay longer, I continued my journey the next day because I also wanted to see the Europa Park, the most visited theme park in Germany. In the Europa Park, there are several areas, each of them imitates a specific country. For example, there is the area Iceland. It looks like you're really in Iceland, and generally it offers the traditional and national food of the most countries shown. That's why I highly recommend this park for people who like travel, because you can simply see many European countries in one day without have to travel far. The following night I slept in a holiday flat near the Europa Park. The next morning I finally set off for France. I'm going to make another video for this. The second time I was in Baden-Württemberg, I was 12 years old and wanted to go to Switzerland. I spent a few nights at a hotel at Lake Constance on the German side. It's a very beautiful lake. The lake is situated where Germany, Switzerland and Austria meet, and it's the third largest freshwater lake by surface area in Central and Western Europe. I visited the Zeppelin Museum there, the birthplace of the Zeppelin airship. As I mentioned, I wanted to go to Switzerland, and because this country also borders Lake Constance, one day I took the ferry across. But more about that in another video coming soon. The third time I spent in Baden-Württemberg was also at Lake Constance. I decided on this lake because I really liked it from the last visit 2 years before. In addition, Lake Constance isn't far from a country I had not been to at the time, so I could combine both things. Like every visit, Baden-Württemberg itself wasn't the final destination. On one day of this holiday, I went to a new country again. On this trip, the destination was neither Switzerland nor Austria. No, this time it was Liechtenstein, the 6th smallest country in the world. Of course, I will make a video of my experiences in Liechtenstein one day too. The fourth holiday and also the last holiday until today, which I enjoyed in Baden-Württemberg, wasn't a big deal. I had not even spent the night there, I just drove through it when I toured Luxembourg. It's kind of ironic, but in conclusion, I can say that every time when I was in Baden-Württemberg, I always wanted to move on to a new country and didn't just want to chill in Baden-Württemberg. Third federal state, Rhineland-Palatinate. I only drove through Rhineland-Palatinate when I wanted to get to Luxembourg. That's the reason why I only spent an hour there at most, on the way there and back. One thing I remember most is that there are lots of forests. It's the most densely forested federal state in Germany with astonishing 42% of the total land area. Those, in combination with misty valleys, looked incredible. I also drove past the town of Bitburg, famous for Bitburger beer. This beer is the third best-selling beer in Germany and the nation's #1 draft beer. Fourth federal state, Saarland. I also only drove through Saarland. Due to this, I can't say very much about it. I only remember that there was a lot of industry there. There were companies and factories everywhere. Fifth federal state, North Rhine-Westphalia. With North Rhine-Westphalia, it was the same as with Rhineland-Palatinate and Saarland. I just drove through it on my trip to Luxembourg. The number of memories I have of Northern Westphalia is even lower than the others two, because I passed through it only on the way back, and on top of that, it was in the middle of the night, so it was pitch dark, and I really can't say that much about this federal state. But I got off there briefly to take a break, so officially it would count. Sixth federal state, Thuringia. Okay, all of the federal states, which I will list now, are only added to my collection list because I have gone to Denmark before, and to drive from Bavaria to Denmark, you would need to travel all across Germany. When I reached the Bavarian-Thuringian border, I saw the border sign of the former inner German border. You must know that until 1990, Germany was divided into two parts and was separated by a wall. And exactly at that point was the wall. Everything I can still remember about Thuringia are colorful trees, you must know that it was autumn at the time, green fields and a cloudless sky. Seventh federal state, Saxony-Anhalt. We drove through Saxony-Anhalt very briefly. I can only remember a few bushes and fields. Eighth federal state, Saxony. We drove even less through Saxony, approximately 15 minutes. The highway has only marginally touched the federal state. A few memories I have of Saxony are also just a few fields and wind turbines. Ninth federal state, Brandenburg. It took a bit more time to drive through Brandenburg, about 2 hours. The trees looked a bit different compared to Bavaria. There were also a few wind turbines, fields, and the Brandenburg Half Lakes, which is a large nature reserve with many lakes. 10th federal state, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. The landscape was beautiful. Green, flat fields with hay blocks or nice forests with tree stands. Sometimes I also drove past lakes. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern is also called the land of 1,000 lakes because it has so many of them. 11th federal state, Schleswig-Holstein. Shortly after I crossed the border from Schleswig-Holstein, I drove into the state of Hamburg, so the very first time, not so much happened. After my detour in Hamburg, I drove back to Schleswig-Holstein. I spent 4 nights in the capital, Kiel. I spent 3 days of this holiday in Kiel during the day, and the other 2 I drove across the Danish border. Kiel is a city that is well worth a visit. It has a port with cruise ships, a train station, a varied shopping mall, and a high town hall. I also visited Schrevenpark, a popular park perfect for a walk. 12th federal state, Hamburg. Normally I wouldn't have passed Hamburg on my way to Kiel, but because I thought I probably wouldn't get to Hamburg anytime soon, I decided at a short notice to go for a walk in the city for a few hours there. Hamburg is the second largest city in Germany. One thing I liked, which we don't have in Bavaria, is that a lot of buildings are made of clinker brick. It was a bit unusual because I'd never seen such skyscrapers before. I visited the Speicherstadt, the largest warehouse district in the world. Afterwards, I strolled along the harbor promenade. You have to see it once. I saw the Elbphilharmonie, a famous concert hall. I liked the shape of the building. I also saw the theater of the world famous Lion King musical. At the end, I got myself a baked fish bun. 13th federal state, Lower Saxony. On the way back from my holiday in Denmark, I only drove through 2 new federal states, Lower Saxony and Hesse. I also really liked Lower Saxony. Wide, flat, green fields, a few small hills, wind turbines, and some villages. 14th federal state, Hesse. Hesse is the last federal state I've visited so far. I'm only missing Berlin and Bremen, 2 city-states. Similar to Lower Saxony, Hesse also has very beautiful fields, wind turbines, and there are more and more hills. You must know that the further you drive to the north in Germany, the flatter the landscape gets. Where I live are even the Alps, and in northern Germany everything is very flat. During my trip through Germany, I was able to observe this quite well. Alright, that was my very long video for today. I hoped you enjoyed it. I would be really glad if you leave a like, because it was very much and hard work for me. Also make sure to subscribe to this channel for more travel stories, and see you soon!